Now I would request Shri Bharat sir to share few words about this course and about your work on Panchatantras. Over to you, sir.
So I thought this would be an apt opportunity to start with the Mangalacharanam shloka that is present within Panchatantram itself. So let me begin there. Brahma Rudrah Kumaro Harivaruna Yama Vanhirindrah Kuberaha Chandradityau Saraswat Yudhadi Yuganaga Vayururvi Bhujangaha Siddha Nadyo Shvinau Shrir Diti Raditi Suta Mataraschandikadyaha Vedastirthani Yajna Ganavasu Manayah Pantu Nityam Grahascha Manave Vachaspataye Shukraya Parasharaya Sasutaya Chanakyaya Chavidushe Namostu Naya Shastrakartribhyaha Sarvebhyaha Namaskaraha Bhavantas Sarve Panchatantrasya Chhatraha Santi Atra Jyeshtaha Apicha Vidvamsaha Santi Aham tu Panchatantram Gurumukhena na adhitavan केवलं पुस्तकस्य साहाय्येन स्वयमेव पठितवान् अतः अद्य अत्र पञ्चतन्त्रस्य विषये किं वक्तव्यम् इति किञ्चित् शङ्का अस्ति समीचीनं भवति वा इत्यपि सन्देहः अस्ति तथापि पञ्चतन्त्रम् अस्मिन् काले अधुना कथं प्रस्तुतमस्ति इति विषये किञ्चित् वक्तुम् इच्छामि अहं संस्कृतस्य साहित्य विद्यार्थी नास्मि अपि च फॉर्मल रीत्या शास्त्राध्ययनं न कृतवान् अतः यद्यपि यत्किञ्चित् अनुचितम् अथवा अप्रस्तुतं वदिष्यामि तर्हि कृपया क्षम्यताम्. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let me get started. So I want to begin with an analogy that I observed, which I found is kind of very interesting and relevant. So in today's world, what we have seen is that our attention span is so less because of various reasons that we hardly have the inclination to go beyond a mobile screen's worth of data when we are reading something. So nobody has time to scroll down and read multiple pages of data to gather information. So everybody expects that whenever some matter is presented to them, the gist of it is presented to them very succinctly in a space worth of mobile screen. So I was very surprised to read the Kathamukam of Panchatantram, where I thought Pandita Vishnu Sharma also faced similar dilemma because he was asked to make the three sons of King Amarashakti intelligent within a short period of 6 months. And it is said in Kathamukam that if one has to go through the formal Shastra Dhyayana, it will take years, tens of years. And he did not have that much time. So what he did was he kind of collected the Sara or the summary of a Niti Shastra from different sources and compiled them into Panchatantra. So I find this a little fascinating that whether it is 2000 years back or now, I think some of the things don't change and it's just the medium and other things that kind of changes. So as per Vishnu Sharma, Panchatantra is for children and he used it to educate the three princes. So it is even said that Panchatantram nama Niti Shastram Balava Bodhanartham Bhutale Pravrittam iti. So I don't know if children of that era were intellectually more advanced than the current generation of kids, but I find that the matter that is present in Panchatantra equally appealing, not just for kids, but for everyone. So this has been my observation about Panchatantra. So the other thing that I want to briefly touch upon is the structure. So the way the Panchatantra stories, as I said, I have not done formal adhyayana, so I'm not aware how these things are taught in a degree course or a postgraduate course, etc. So all my understanding is limited to the Amarachitra Kathas and other story books about Panchatantra. So based on that, what I have observed is that these stories are presented these days to our kids, right? I don't think they are doing complete justice to the matter that is present in this Niti Shastra. So typically the main thread story invariably gets dropped and the sub-stories are presented in independent standalone manner. So these sub-stories have a value in themselves. I feel it is very important to understand how do they fit in the main narration and how do they assist some of the vadas that the characters are making there. So all these things is kind of lost, is what I have found in at least in the story books that are targeted towards children. And most of the narrations generally stick to just the story, and hence the innumerable subhashitas that are sprinkled all over the Panchatantra, right? So those are not included, and hence a wealth of knowledge is mostly lost. So that's when I realized that it is important to read Panchatantra from the original sources, because at least nobody was like presenting it in the format that is anywhere close to the originals. So what I plan to do now is to briefly look at some of the learnings that we can take from Panchatantra for the current era. Due to the limitations of time, I'll touch upon only a few examples. As the esteemed teacher mentioned, right, it has a wealth of information. Different people will take different things out of it. And there is still enough things to take away from that. So based on my informal reading of Panchatantra, I want to actually talk about a few things. One of the first things I want to touch is about the Raja Dharma. So since Panchatantra was written compiled for princes, right? It is hardly surprising that it has dealt upon the subject of Raja Dharma and different aspects of it in very detail. The nature of the king, the qualities of a king have come about as part of different stories. For example, in the Simha Shashaka story of Mitrabhedha, when the king was killing his subjects indiscriminately, right? They approach him and give him an advice on Raja Dharma by quoting this shloka, right? Shanai 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 Shanaischa yo rajyam upabhunte yatha balam rasayanami vaprajnyaha sapushtim paramam vrajet. So this is one example. There are various other aspects like the strengths and weaknesses of the ruling class, the kind of rulers that should be rejected, the way to gain confidence of a king, the advantages of being in the Krupa Kataksha of a king, how the king should deal with his subjects and his employees. These are all dealt via stories. So it's not just about kings, it also describes the qualities of good ministers and counselors that king has. And these are all dealt in good amount of detail. So what I felt was most of this, or I think all of this is very much relevant to the current political class or the ruling class that we have. So the next item I want to briefly touch is about the parampara or the tradition. So in many stories, what I felt was the importance of retaining what has been handed down to us through generations. This aspect is greatly stressed, is what I felt. The tantra that Damanaka makes, right, to get back his paramparagata mantri padavi, it's a good example of it. Like people can go to great extent, or people are expected to go to great extent to retain whatever that has been handed down to them by generations, is one of the good things that I found. And the other thing is about insider outsider differentiation that I found was very interesting, the way Panchatantra deals with it. This is one aspect I felt which has been completely or totally neglected, either intentionally or otherwise these days. So to talk about little bit on this, right? When we take in refugees, it is important to have a long-term perspective of what harm they can bring to us, how incompatible they can be to our way of life, and we are getting them in at what cost. So all these things need to be considered. This is beautifully explained in a very short and simple story, that is Mandavisarpini Matkuna story. If you just read through it, it appears to be just a small or a very simple story which children could enjoy. But I think that it has a deeper meaning about what I kind of alluded to. The other aspect that I want to next take up is this Shatru Nigraha and Ranatantra. So how to deal with the enemies has been dealt as part of many stories. Enemies at the Vayaktika level, the personal level, enemies at the Rajya level, right? All these things have kind of been described. It gives us a good, in fact, the entire third tantra, that is Kakolukiyam, exclusively deals with the subject of Shatru Nigraha, Ranatantra, and the other aspects around it. And what I see is that it gives a very good account or understanding of the Kshatriya Parampara and how our ancestors understood the use of different upayas like Sandhi, Vigraha, Yana, Samshraya, Dvaidi, Bhava, etc. So it also elaborates on the importance of having solid defense. Wherever it talks about having Durga Vyavastha, right, the fortification, etc. I think that's what it is mostly referring to, having solid defense. And the way Kakolukiyam treats each of these upayas in detail, if you look at it, right, through the versions of different mantris that the king had, right, it is fascinating to read them actually, like the pros and cons, and when one upaya should be used compared to another, when should sandhi be used, when should vigraha be used, when should you actually do a palayana, when you should stay put, and when you should like use all your kapata tantras, Vaidhi Bhava, double games, etc. All those things are elaborately dealt with. So what I felt after reading this is that some of these stories in this tantra, right, can be an eye opener for the current generation, which is typically brought up with the notion that Sama is the only way to resolve conflicts. So I might be saying this within my narrow scope of things, but this is what I felt. The other thing the esteemed teacher mentioned is about Seva Vritti. So though this is described in the context of king and his Bhrityas, it is essentially about employee-employer relationship, qualities of a good leader, his ability to discriminate employees based on their gunas. These are all well stressed actually. So what are the qualities of a king or an employer, and what are the qualities that the Bhrityas should possess? All these things are elaborated pretty well actually. And the other important aspect that kind of runs through all the 5 tantras is the value of wealth, or the dhana. Enough has been said about the value of possessing wealth. In fact, Mitrabhedha starts with a detailed explanation of why money is important and the means of earning money through the right means, right? The ways of earning money through the right means. The importance of dana and the ridicule and the problems faced by the poor are well elaborated. Along with this, the Purusha Prayatna and Daiva Chitta related to Dhana Prapti, right? All these things are compared and contrasted well via stories. So and also one thing I observed is good number of subhashitas, which are satirical in nature, have been reserved to explain things about dhana and or the lack of it. Found it very interesting. So the final thing that I had listed down here to talk about is the use of tantra. So as the name says, Panchatantra is about using tantras to achieve our objectives. So looking at the kind of tantras that are used, right, sometimes I got a feeling that if they are indeed Nyaya Yukta or as per Dharma, so what Damanaka does to Sanjivaka, is that right? Can he be that brutal in breaking the friendship and getting the bull killed? So is that the correct thing to do, right? But when I sat down and started thinking a little bit more about it, and what it appeared to me was that when there is a need to uphold Dharma, when it is a question of larger interest of the community, or when a Shatru needs to be defeated, or when our parampara is under threat, and in many such situations, right, using any of these upayas or tantras to achieve the objective is a fair game. This is what I understood. So finally, being good is necessary for, or having good people in the society is necessary for the healthy society, as we all understand. But an understanding that not everyone will be good is equally required. One should understand the tricks and the tantras that these bad people can be bad people, and we need to be equipped to handle them appropriately by employing any of the means or methods for the greater good. This for me was the biggest learning from Panchatantra. And finally, that was about my limited understanding about Panchatantra. And now I would want to conclude by thanking Venkat sir and Vyoma Labs for giving me this opportunity to address the students of Panchatantra. I have myself been a student of Vyoma Labs. I have taken a few courses from them. My family and I have benefited much from the education that's provided by Vyoma Labs. So lastly, I urge all of you to continue with the other tantras of Panchatantra to help the learners to get them introduced to Panchatantra, as it was said in my introduction. I have got all the stories of all the tantras recorded in video form in Sanskritam along with English meaning. So it can be found at panchatantra-sanskrit.com, panchatantra-sanskrit.com. I request all of you to take a look and make use of it. And once again, thank you. Dhanyavadaha.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very kind words towards Vyoma. And also, it was very good to listen your perspective towards Panchatantra. It was very informative, sir. Thank you so much for coming and providing us the information. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.